You hear the ticking in the wall. It's been there for years, but tonight it's the only sound left. You sit in the dim light, hands resting on your knees. No phone calls, no footsteps, just time marking sorrow. You didn't expect to cry again, but here you are, not sobbing, just sinking. The couch hasn't been moved since last winter. Even the dust knows your routine. Your grief doesn't scream anymore. It waits, quietly. You thought by now it would shrink. Instead, it has learned to sit beside you. And tonight you let it. Because silence is less cruel than pretending. And something in you whispers if God is real, He must already know what this ache feels like. You don't mean to hum it. It just comes soft, cracked, familiar. The old, rugged cross. And exchange it someday. You stop. She used to sing that while folding towels. You were a child then, pretending not to listen. But your soul remembers. Her voice wasn't strong, but it was sure. And somehow you believed more then. God felt real in the room when she sang. Tonight, the memory presses warm against your ribs. Not the words, but the way she closed her eyes. You wonder, did she know Jesus that closely? Did she feel Him sitting in the silence with her? Because suddenly you do. Not with your eyes, not with your ears, but something deeper. You are not alone here. It's the same one. The blanket they gave you after the service. You still fold it the same way, careful corner to corner. No one sees you do it. You don't even know why you still do. But it matters. Like saying you were real. You were here. The room holds the weight of things unsaid. You reach for the tea, but it's cold. You don't warm it. Some things can't be reheated. You sit back, hold the folded cloth. Not crying, just remembering. And you ask, why does everything that mattered most now exist only in your hands or your habits? Why did grief choose you to keep it alive? You want to ask God that, but you're not sure you'd hear the answer even if He spoke. You think of Him often. The one who sat by the dust. The crowd passed Him by. They said He was cursed, broken, useless. But He stayed anyway waiting. You know that feeling. You sit through days that don't see you. You smile so no one asks. You pray sometimes. But mostly you just wait. Not for miracles, just for someone to notice. That's why you love that story. Because Jesus didn't walk past. He stopped. He asked, "What do you want me to do for you?" No one asks you that anymore. But in the hush of tonight, you close your eyes. And you imagine Him asking you now. The question still lingers. And it undoes you. You set the second plate again. You don't know why. It's not habit, it's reverence. The chair stays empty, but you keep treating it like someone's coming. Grief does that, tells you to wait for what you already buried. You stir your soup and don't touch it. The spoon rests heavy. Everything rests heavy. You wonder what God does with empty chairs. Does He sit in them? Does He notice, or are they like your prayers offered unanswered? Still sacred somehow. You lean your head back. Tears don't fall. They stay in your chest. And the silence isn't cruel tonight. It's almost holy. As if someone else is remembering with you. Even if no one knocks on the door, you're not fully alone anymore. You imagine the garden. Not the flowers, but the dust. It's nighttime. Everything smells like olives and sweat. You kneel there not as a disciple, but as someone who doesn't know what to say. He's ahead of you, face to the ground, weeping. He hasn't looked up yet, but you feel it. You're not supposed to be here, but you are. And the ache in your chest, he carries that too. You don't speak, neither does he. But in that silence, something changes. It's not hope, not yet. But you know he sees the pain you don't talk about, and he's not backing away. You try again. God, it barely escapes your lips. You don't have a full prayer, just pieces. Pieces of regret, longing, confusion. You whisper them like broken glass in your palm. You want to believe someone hears, but your voice feels swallowed by the dark. You used to pray with words. Now you pray with breathing. Inhale, hold, exhale, repeat. You think of Jesus on the cross barely speaking. Even he whispered his last words. Maybe that's enough. Maybe tonight God doesn't need your voice to be loud. Maybe he just needs it to be honest. And this is all you have. A whisper, and the will to try again tomorrow. He doesn't knock. He's just there. Not with thunder, just warmth. A quiet weight beside you. He doesn't fix the pain, doesn't explain why you're still hurting, but his presence presses into the room like a thick blanket. You don't turn to look. You don't need to. You feel seen. You feel known, like the ache in you finally has a witness. He doesn't speak. He just stays. And for the first time in days, you let your shoulders fall. You stop pretending. You sit with your grief and him together. And in this silence, you hear something softer than words I know. You expected healing to feel like joy, but it feels like this, a quiet strength to sit with sorrow and not be undone. The ache is still here, but it no longer crushes. You're not floating, you're anchored. The silence isn't empty anymore. It holds memory, it holds faith, it holds him. You don't try to move on, you just breathe. And as you do, the room doesn't feel as heavy. The shadows still stretch, but they don't threaten. You close your eyes and whisper, "Thank you for staying." You don't need anything else tonight. Not answers, not miracles. Just this quiet presence, like the way dusk holds the last of the light. You rise, not strong, just steady. You fold the blanket again. The spoon stays in the bowl. You leave it there. The light remains on just one, and in this moment you know you are not healed, but you are held. That changes everything. He didn't take the grief. He sat in it. He didn't erase the ache. He touched it. And somehow, that's enough. You whisper one last line, not even knowing why you know my name. And he does. Tomorrow can wait. For tonight, he is here. And so are you. And that's enough. You close the door softly, as if someone's sleeping. But no one is, not for years. The hallway still smells like lemon polish and old dust. You sit in your favorite chair, but it doesn't feel like yours anymore. The walls remember laughter better than you do. And tonight, your mind won't rest. It spins. Memories sneak in, some sweet, some sharp. You replay things you didn't say. Moments you didn't know were final. Why does grief speak so loudly in silence? You rub your chest like you could press it back in, but the ache spills anyway. And in this echoing house, you finally admit it. You don't want to move on. You just want to be seen in your staying. The pages were worn, edges soft from her fingers. You never really read it, but she did. Every morning, before the world had a chance to touch her, it sat beside her lamp with a ribbon she never moved. You remember her whispering verses under her breath, not for show, just because it helped her breathe. You never asked her why, and now you wish you had. Tonight, you walk down the hallway, open her door, and stare. The Bible's gone, but you still see it. You reach your hand out, not to touch it, but to remember who she was with it. And, as you stand in that dim light, you sense something more than memory. You are not the only one in this room. It rises in your throat, but you stop it. Names carry power, and hers still hurts. You whisper instead, a half-breath, a shadow of her name. That's enough to undo you. You sit at the edge of her bed. You haven't changed the quilt. The pillow still bears the faint shape of her head. You run your hand across it like you're smoothing her hair, and for a moment you forget she's gone. The pain comes back full no warning. It folds you forward. You thought you were past this stage. But grief has no stages, only circles. And tonight, you're back at the beginning. You don't speak her name aloud, but you say it in your heart. And that's where she still lives. She didn't call out, she didn't ask, she just reached quietly, desperately. You know that feeling, wanting to believe but too tired to beg. She'd been bleeding for years. No answers, no relief. You've been hurting too, not in body but soul. Years of silent ache. You haven't told anyone, not fully. But Jesus knew. He stopped. He turned. He said, "Who touched me not with anger, with knowing?" You think of that moment now. You think of yourself in the crowd, hidden, hurting, hoping, and you wonder if he would stop for you, if he already has, because somehow tonight you feel noticed, even if you can't explain why. You didn't cry, not in front of them. You greeted every guest, smiled at the casserole's folded napkins. You stood by the casket firm, because someone had to. But now it hurts. Not just the loss, the pretending. You held so much back that you wonder if it ever gets released. The tears come now quietly. No one's here to see, and that feels both safe and lonely. You clench the tissue. You speak into the stillness, "I didn't mean to be strong. I just didn't know how else to survive." No one answers, but something loosens. It's okay to fall apart here. You made it through that day. Now, you're learning how to live through the ones that follow. The crowd presses. Noise, chaos, bodies, breath. You feel small. You've always felt small. Unseen, even in a room full of people. But in this scene, this memory, he turns. Jesus turns. Not toward the Pharisees, not toward the loud, toward you. You don't move. You're not even sure why he sees you. But his eyes rest on yours. Not judging, just knowing. As if he sees every memory, the ones you revisit, the ones you bury. He knows. He still looks. You want to look away, but you can't, because being seen, really seen, is the beginning of healing. And tonight you let yourself be seen. It's not one thing, it's the little ones. The final voicemail you never returned. The way you rushed the last visit. The joke you didn't laugh at. You carry them like stones in your chest. You've tried to forgive yourself, but regret is sticky. It clings. You think of her face, how you wish you had held it one last time. You whisper, "I'm sorry," to the air, to yourself, to God. And something unexpected happens. You don't feel judged. You feel understood. Maybe sorrow is seen in heaven too, and maybe there is grace even for what you forgot to say. Tonight, for the first time, you let yourself mourn out loud. It's not loud, just a sense, a warmth, a word, a wind. I never left you. You close your eyes. You don't need proof. You just need that sentence. He was there in the hospital room, in the hallway after the news, in the car when your hands shook on the wheel, in the garden where you sat too long. You didn't see him then, but tonight the veil lifts. He was never absent, only silent. And now his voice folds over your soul like soft cloth, not shaming, not fixing, just staying. I never left you. You repeat it, until it doesn't feel foreign, until it becomes the most honest thing you've believed all day. You still miss her. That hasn't changed. You still cry in the kitchen at stoplights during commercials. But the shame is softer now. The sharp edges of regret have dulled. You begin to see the love between the cracks. The small ways she knew you cared even when you didn't say it right. Even when you didn't show up perfectly. Grief tells you love wasn't enough. But grace says it was. You inhale slowly. Let it rest in you. You may always miss her. But you don't have to punish yourself to remember her. She is already remembered. By God. By you. And that is holy. You lie back. The room dim. The night still heavy. But something has changed. You're not curled up in despair. You're resting in remembrance. Your head sinks into the pillow. You exhale fully. And in that breath, you sense him again. No fanfare. Just closeness. He stays until your breathing slows. He doesn't leave when the thoughts return. He doesn't vanish when the grief aches again. He's still there. You whisper his name like a child, Jesus. It doesn't echo. It lands right into his presence. You feel seen and safe. And even in sorrow, that is enough to sleep. Because you are not alone. You settle under the covers, but rest doesn't come. The room feels too still, too aware of what it's missing. You stare at the ceiling, counting lines instead of sheep. Your hands rest on your stomach, empty. You think about tomorrow, though you're not ready for it. Some nights you just want to disappear quietly, not in despair, but in surrender. Not to death, to mercy. Your body aches with things no doctor can treat: memory, regret, fatigue. You whisper, God, if you're still near, hold what I can't. And though the ache doesn't lift you, feel held anyway. Not because it got better, but because you're not holding it alone. And sometimes that's the beginning of real rest. You were 6. The room smelled like old wood and peppermint. He opened the Bible with a reverence you didn't understand. Jesus stilled the storm, he whispered. You didn't get the story, just the calm in his voice. That night you slept without fear. Tonight, the memory returns. You didn't ask for it. It just came like a thread from God's sleeve brushing your cheek. You haven't thought of your father's voice in years, but suddenly it speaks again, and with it a calm you didn't know you still needed. Jesus quieted the wind once. Could he quiet your mind now? The thought doesn't fix you, but it comforts. And that's what you wanted more than sleep. You can't bear to see it tick forward. It feels cruel the way time moves when grief wants to pause. You throw a shirt over the clock. There. No more numbers, just now. You listen to your own breathing. You feel it in your ribs, the weight of simply surviving. Another hour gone, another hour without them. You used to think sleep was escape. Now you know it's trust, because closing your eyes means giving up control even for a few hours. You whisper, Jesus, if you're staying, can you stay while I sleep? You don't demand dreams or peace, just company, because even the ache softens when it's witnessed. And tonight, you need a witness more than a rescue. You didn't mean to fail, but you did. Words you should have said, forgiveness you withheld. You were afraid. You thought you had more time. You think of Peter, the sound of that crow, his shame, thick like smoke. You understand it now. You remember the last thing she said and how you brushed it off. And now that memory pecks at your conscience. But Peter was still loved, still found, still restored. You wonder, could Jesus still look at you that way? Could he sit in your shame without turning away? You think he could. Because tonight you feel a quiet presence not demanding penance, just offering peace. And somehow that's even harder to accept, and more healing than you expected. So many words unsent. You find them in your chest like unopened letters. I forgive you. I was wrong. I miss the way we used to laugh. You lie still, wishing time could rewind. Not to change the end, but to speak before it came. You feel the guilt settle like dust. Not sharp, just always there. You whisper them now into the dark, I loved you. I do. Even if no one answers. Even if no voice returns. You believe God hears the words we say too late, that he carries them where we cannot. And maybe, just maybe, he whispers them forward to the place where souls still listen. You imagine yourself by the fire. The coals crackle. You've been walking a long time, soul-tired, not just feet. And there he is, kneeling, basin in hand. He doesn't ask questions, doesn't mention your regrets, just pours the water, warm. It touches you, cleanses you. You didn't think Jesus still did that, but here he is, stooping low. No sermon, just silence, and the sound of love in motion. You look down, not at your feet, but at his eyes, and they hold no disappointment, only welcome. And in that sacred moment you realize this is what grace looks like when it bends low. You lie still, eyes dry, but that doesn't mean you're fine. Some pain doesn't leak, it lingers. You wonder if anyone notices. No phone calls today, no messages. You're not mad, just invisible. You pull the blanket up higher, like it could cover the ache. You don't need attention, you need assurance. That even when no one sees your sorrow, God still does. You whisper into the dark, do you still count tears that never fall? And something in your chest says yes. You let that be enough. You don't need to break down tonight. You just need to be remembered. And you are, even in silence. It's not thunder, it's a whisper. But you hear it, your name, spoken like a secret, like a lullaby, like a promise. He says it again, not because he forgot, but because you needed to remember. You close your eye tighter, as if that will make it more real. And it does, because something inside responds, like a child running toward the sound of their father. You whisper back, "Here I am, not fixed, not fearless, just here." And he stays. Repeats your name again, not to get your attention, but to give you peace. Even now, especially now, because you are not forgotten, and you never were. You keep thinking of what you should do, what to say, what to change, but not tonight. Tonight, nothing must be solved. There's nothing to complete, nothing to fix. The ache is not a project, it's a prayer. Unfinished, still holy. You let your thoughts slow. You let the questions remain. They'll still be there tomorrow. But tonight, you release your grip. You let mercy hold what your hands cannot. And that is the bravest thing you've done in a while. To stop, to trust, to rest, not because it's resolved, but because it's safe. Because he's here. And he stays. You don't say goodnight. You say, "I'm tired." And heaven hears more in that phrase than 1,000 polished prayers. You turn off the lamp. The room grows tender in the dark. Still. And you feel it not in vision, but presence. He is here. Still. Watching. Not guarding like a soldier, but resting beside like a friend. You don't dream yet. But your heart does of a place where sorrow sleeps in peace. And tonight you get a taste of it. One breath at a time. One whisper at a time. You are not alone. He is watching. And he will be here when morning comes. Pray for the night when grief still lingers. God, I don't have the words tonight. I've carried so much for so long and I'm tired. If you're still here, could you just stay until I sleep? Don't fix it, just sit beside me. Amen. You don't have to do anything else now. Not one more memory. Not one more apology. Not even one more prayer. Just breathe. Let the quiet hold you. Let his presence wrap around the places that still ache. Tonight wasn't meant to solve it all, just to remind you that you are not carrying it alone. You've been strong for so long, and now it's okay to rest. You don't have to make sense of the past. You don't have to earn tomorrow's peace. Right now, mercy has already reached you, and whether your eyes stay open or begin to close, you are held. You are seen. And nothing, not even the silence, can separate you from his nearness. So lay everything down now. And picture this Jesus still beside you, still watching. As sleep drifts in, he doesn't leave. He just stays. If this moment met you where you needed, if your chest softened, or your breathing deepened, or something in you finally whispered, "I'm not alone," then let this space stay open. Subscribe to keep his voice within reach when yours is tired. Share this prayer with someone whose silence feels too heavy tonight, someone who needs to know that God still sits with the brokenhearted. And if you feel safe to do so, I would be honored to hear your story in the comments. What's one moment, even the smallest, when you sensed God was quietly sitting beside your grief? Because maybe your story is the comfort someone else is still waiting to find. And together, in this gentle corner of the night, we remember, he didn't leave, he never does. Good night.